Oh,
We are live. Hi,
alive.
it's Allen Ruddock from Linked Business, and it's Catherine Nicholas from Heart and Soul Coaching. If you were watching earlier, I was wearing my Surrey Business Expo hat and had different branding and everything, and it's magic what you can do in with a little bit of code and a little bit of tweaking, and we have a totally different brand, totally different conversation. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. So yeah,
Good.
really excited to be here, and thank you for having a conversation with me this afternoon. It's really exciting. So yeah.
Well, we did try to do what we're talking about today. We did try and do that face to face a week or so ago, but you weren't feeling great, and the weather wasn't playing ball with us. So we had a conversation over Zoom instead, and
Which is where this then appeared out of nowhere. Like, oh, let's do an interview about outdoor coaching and see what happens for a conversation.
So tell me, let's kick it off by you telling us, everybody, what you mean by outdoor coaching.
So outdoor coaching is taking what would traditionally be a coaching conversation, which is traditionally in four walls, often sat face to face, and taking that outside or into a natural environment, and moving the dynamic from face to face to side by side, either to walk, to sit, sometimes just to kind of even sit inside and bring the outdoors in. And just to introduce the natural world into the coaching conversation, because it can open up a whole world of different possibilities for individuals. And there's been limited but increasing amount of research about the benefits of, well, we know what the benefits are of being outdoors.
Yes, yeah.
And you know that it's, you know, prescribed as something that's really healthy. Actually, when you add add a coaching element or some form of even walking and talking type of element to a conversation, it shifts and it amplifies the restorative effects of those conversations. And that's really what outdoor coaching is about. And it's quite a growing movement, actually. There's more and more coaches that are using outdoors. Some people are using it kind of sporadically. Some people are using it on a regular basis. And it doesn't mean that you have to climb a mountain. Oh my God.
Just thinking as you were saying that, it might be conjuring up this idea of people that were all in jogging pants and sweatbands and God knows what, and we're trying to think business or personal coaching as we're running along. It's not like that. No. It's definitely not like that. It's as brisk or as gentle a walk as you want or can manage, and you're having a conversation while you're doing it.
Yeah. And it's about, it is literally about having a conversation side by side in an environment that is not necessarily indoors. Because getting outdoors, it has massive positive impact in all sorts of things. So that's basically it. And it's been something that I've been working with for a while. And it's something that I'm much keener to do on a more regular basis, because the impact that I'm seeing and the people that I'm talking to and I'm working with, it's having a massive impact on the outcomes that they're creating for themselves as we have those conversations. So it's been a really wonderful experience to be a part of.
That's good. Mm-hmm. From my perspective, I can see three huge benefits from doing this sort of thing outside. Firstly, you're getting some physical exercise, which is important. Even if it's a gentle amble, you're still getting some physical exercise. So you're moving the joints, you're moving the body. It's just recognized as being good for you. Secondly, as you say, you're outside, you're getting fresh air, you're engaging with nature. And that is really, really powerful and important for your mental health, as well as your physical health. And when you combine the physical and the mental health together, that being outside is really, really powerful and really important for improving your well-being. And then thirdly, you might be talking from in a coaching context, but you're taking it away from the environment where you normally engage in what you do. You're outside of the work environment. So if you're having a coaching conversation and about how you're how you're dealing with work situations or how you behave in work situations, you're out of that environment while you're having that conversation. And that, for some unknown reason, makes the conversation easier, in my experience. I don't know about whether you'd agree, Catherine.
Yeah, I think it does, because well, there's this perceived value of inside versus outside. You know, what's when you're inside, there's often, you know, you feel contained. As you talk about being in this space, there's a containment to that. But when you go outside into a natural environment, it gives you this sense of expanse, of freedom, of ability to see beyond the containment that you're actually in. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's so powerful, just having a conversation. And it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're talking to a friend, whether you're having a one-to-one with a potential business connection, whether you're an employee and a line manager, you know, any context where you're shifting yourself out of the normal environment and into something that just shifts it up and moves it around a bit is really powerful. And one of the things I think that's really powerful about being outdoors is that the effect that it has on your brain. So when you're moving, the blood, our bodies are designed to move. So you talked about blood flow and movement. So that increase of blood flow up and into the brain and back out again, you're increasing the oxygen. It brings the brain level waves into a much more kind of reflective, relaxed state, which enables you to think more clearly anyway. That's what we're designed to do. And then there's this other kind of thinking that is around, well, when you're in the brain finds the outdoor environment quite relaxing. It's really restorative in terms of it doesn't have to concentrate on what's going on. So it can drop into this much more quieter space that enables this clearer thinking, actually. And again, the conversations flow more easily. When silence isn't a problem, you know, if you're having a bit of it could be a challenging conversation, because there's two things. You're side by side and you're having you're not looking at each other, so it's less confrontational. Secondly, it's you can stop. The silences are more natural because you can stop and pause. And there's no kind of expectation for you to speak and fill that silence, because you could just be looking at a tree or a bird, or if you're with water, what's going on in the water. So it takes that pressure out of that conversation and enables it to flow in a much more easier way, I think. So that's two of the things I would say, definitely.
Really interesting what you say about silence there, because as you know, I'm a Samaritan. And we go through extensive training before we're even allowed near a telephone and taking a call. But one of our core tenets is that we allow silences, and sometimes those silences can be quite lengthy. 15, 30, even 60 seconds is not unusual in a Samaritan's call. And we are trained to resist the temptation to fill the silence. And it's such a powerful thing, and if the silence has gone on too long, our callers always turn around and say, "Are you still there?" And we say, "Yeah, just giving you time to reflect on what we've been talking about." But sometimes they actually need that time to reflect.
Yeah.
And if you allow the silences when you're out walking together, you can see when somebody's reflecting. When you're on a phone call, you can't see whether they're reflecting or whether they're going, "Oh my God," But when you're out walking, it's much more natural for those silences, and it makes it easier to sustain those silences or allow those silences to take place. Yeah.
And silence is where the thinking happens. It's where the reflection comes. It's where the new thinking arrives. It's where the brain is able to just bring itself down to a level where it's a little bit, in a calmer state to make a better decision. So silence is important. And I think in a coaching relationship, or even in a whatever relationship, silence is actually like the third person. If there's two of you having a conversation, there is a third person, and that is silence. And that the power of that is really powerful. And adding those other benefits of some movement, actually listening to bird songs, seeing, hearing and feeling those extra senses on your skin or in your nose, or what you're hearing. That's really powerful because it just soothes the brain and allows you to think more clearly.
Yeah. And it's that change of environment, isn't it? Where you're hearing different things compared with what you're hearing when you're in your normal working environment. You're smelling different things as well. It's funny, I was talking to Ed Schofield on the Surrey Business Expo interview live today, and we were talking about the need to be able to use all of your senses as part of your marketing experience, which you can do if you've got an expo stand. We were talking about one particular exhibitor who runs a cleaning business, and how hopefully his stand is going to smell like it's just been cleaned because it creates the right impression.
It creates a mood as well. It creates it creates a sense, and we underestimate the sense of taste and smell, and how well they're linked, but also underestimate how much power they have over what we're seeing and feeling and thinking about the world. And I think that's one of the other things around some of the kind of the evidence in there, is that being outside, and depending on where the environment is, that enables you to tap into those senses in a different way, that you're not, you can sit and you can look and you go, well, actually, what can you smell in the air? What's different about this and how does this relate to the conversation that we're having? And that could be about anything, really. It really makes a difference. So,
And the other thing is, when you take yourself out of the work environment to have these sorts of conversations, you're leaving behind the clutter of the work environment. No matter how tidy a person you are work-wise, there is still all the paraphernalia of work around you. So as I sit here now, I've got my 2 screens, my camera, microphone, keyboard, desk diary. I've got my wall chart behind me. I've got a pile of stuff over there for the expo, and a pile of box of chocolates over there for the expo. It's all around me. So no matter how much I try and disengage from that, I've only got a glance, and it's there, and it's invading your mind, even if you don't realize it. Whereas you take yourself outside, and it's completely different. You are freed up from all of that clutter. And that just enables your mind, as you say, it enables the mind to slow down, but it also enables the mind to take in other things as well. And when you're not faced by all of that clutter, you're not as overwhelmed by it. You might know that you've got to go back and deal with a pile of stuff, but it's not as overwhelming, it's not as daunting when you're out having that conversation elsewhere.
And then if you think about the benefit of that and the productivity that comes with that, because we often think, oh, we need to go more, do more, be more, work harder, get on with this faster. Actually, there's you need to slow down to speed up sometimes. In fact, probably not sometimes, most of the time. And actually stepping away from everything, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, to walk around. If you're in an office, is there a space that you can walk around outside? Is there a space you can just go and stand on the doorstep and breathe in? If it's raining, breathe in what it smells like. What does that feel like? And then return, and that suddenly the ideas that come, the flow comes, the creativity arrives, and it just becomes a different experience when you've returned back to that environment.
I'm a great believer in clarity and focus over hard work and speeding up. I think you can rush and mess things up completely because you're just trying, got to do. Whereas if you have some clarity on what it is you're trying to achieve, and then you focus on what's really important to get it done, you'll actually achieve and deliver a lot more than if you sort of run the 1,600 miles an hour trying to do stuff. It's just, you burn yourself out as well.
And burnout is obviously it's talked about a lot right nowadays. Actually, how are we serving ourselves to give ourselves space to prevent that? And actually, for me, on my own personal journey in the last 12 months, actually being outside has really, really calmed down a lot of the noise and the chatter. And I don't have to coach with someone outside. I can just be on my own a bit more outside. And that's been the flexibility around being actually I do my best thinking when I'm walking.
I was going to say that myself. Yeah, all my best ideas come when I'm walking. Typically when I'm walking down through Guildford by the River Way or up through Chantries. I get all my best ideas there. Yeah.
And it's interesting. So this some of the ideas have come. Like, I think some of the feedback has come actually when you're around water. That seems to be one of the most, for ourselves. I know I love the coast. I'm at my most peace when I'm at the coast. The next space is a kind of a either a mixture of wooded and open land, and then seeing those different vistas in my field of vision. There, I find them really highly kind of like calming. And how's highly and calming go together? But you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I think one thing, if you're going to embrace coaching outside, and as a coach, you do this naturally anyway. But as somebody, as a client, if you're going to embrace outdoor coaching, in fact, you really need to embrace it anyway. It's really important, but it's active listening.
Yeah.
And it's something I bang on about a lot. I mean, I'm trained as a listener for Samaritans, so I've learned an awful lot about listening over the last 5-6 years since I started my journey as a Samaritan. And when I look at a lot of people that I interact with, they don't know how to listen. They don't. It's really thinking about it. When we're growing up, we learn to do things by mimicking our parents and the adults around us and our siblings. So we learn to speak that way. We learn to walk that way. We learn to do things that way. And then as we get older, we're taught to read and we're taught to write. And we might be taught to play an instrument, or if we're struggling to speak, we might get a speech therapist. But I can't think of any instance where we teach children how to listen.
No.
I can't think of a single instance where we're taught how to listen.
And it's interesting because most people tend to listen to respond rather than really listening, and actually really listening to what's being not said in both the body language, in the words that are being spoken, is such a powerful thing. And you learn a lot about yourself as well when you learn to listen to yourself and your own words and how you're speaking about yourself. And that's part of the coaching relationship. Sometimes it's just slowing someone down and go, did you notice that you just said this? You've used that word several times over. Or how are you listening to you? Or how are you listening to me? And
as you say, most people listen for the opportunity to speak. And instead of actually listening to what the other person is saying to understand what they're saying, they're listening for an opportunity. And instead of thinking about what the other person's saying, they're thinking about how can I get my next sentence in? How can I get my next idea across? So it's like two conversations going on opposite each other, but nobody's listening to the other. So, and that's why politicians never have any meeting of minds.
And there's usually a third one, or actually four, because there's the person that the words that are coming out of their mouth, and then there's the conversation that's going on in their head at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a totally different conversation.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Often unrelated.
Completely, generally.
Yes.
So what's your experience of? Because I think what you do is in your business and what I do in my business actually it can be quite similar. So we talked a little bit earlier on about, I can take a client on a coaching conversation, but how do you go outside with your clients and how does that work?
Not usually, no. We do sometimes meet and have those conversations in other places away from the workplace. So we might meet in a coffee shop, or we might hire or carry on in a hired room or something to where I run the hub. We'll stay in the room a bit longer or something like that. Most of the time, it's because when I'm having a conversation, it's quite technical. In the sense that we're talking about LinkedIn, or we might be talking more generally about marketing, business in general. but it's where people want specific advice about specific situations, and they want to be able to actually then take that advice, remember it, and go and implement it. And so it gets to the stage where, we can't both be sitting there making copious notes. And I always say, if you're focused on writing notes, you're not focused on the conversation you're having anyway. So that's why I do most of my coaching over Zoom, because I can set Zoom to record, or I can use Firefly. I like using Fireflies, which is an AI tool, because it will not only will it record and produce a video, it will give you a transcript, and it will give you a meeting summary with all the actions as well. So that way I don't have to try and repeat something, because I'm brilliant at coming out with lovely little one-liners to put in headlines and profiles and about sections. And then a client will say to me, "Can you just repeat that?" I go, "No, I can't. I never get the gist of it. I never get it exactly right the second time." And so go back and listen to the recording. And also, if they're engaged with me, instead of having to write notes, we can have a much better and much more detailed discussion and conversation about things. But I have found a way of doing it outside. Yeah, I haven't actually practiced it very much yet, but I do have, where's it gone? I have these wonderful little set of microphones. They're 2 lapel mics, one each, and then a thing that goes into your iPhone, and you set it all up, and I can record us having a two-way conversation while we're walking along. It doesn't matter. We don't have to be face to face. We're walking along. You've got your mic. I've got my mic. We can pick it up. Fireflies will record it. They'll record the audio. It will do a transcript. It will do a summary of actions and all that sort of stuff. So I can actually do that while walking. The only thing I can't do, well, I suppose I can look at the phone and bring up LinkedIn and say, well, look at this. This is, but yeah. So it's not as good in terms of a technical coaching situation as it is face to face on the screen, like we're doing here, say. But it is a good way of doing it, and actually, it's a great way of getting outside, and you develop that relationship more as well.
Yeah, I think it becomes a stronger relationship. You can kind of go a bit deeper, really, in that conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess one thing I reflect on it around actually going, we talked earlier on about not going out because A, I wasn't very well, but B, it was absolutely pouring with rain, wasn't it? The day we tried to have a coffee. And I think maybe that's something we should touch on in terms of weather, because interestingly, I know when I go outside, I went out on, was it Monday morning? I don't know what day it was, but it's Tuesday, when it was absolutely pouring.
Yeah.
And actually I have to take the dog out, she needs a walk. But actually once I was out, it was fine. And I think there's sometimes a reluctance around, it might rain, or what happens if it's too cold, and actually just being prepared for the weather. And as a coach, and as a business coach, and if we're choosing to take some of those conversations outside, actually being prepared for that. Okay, well, are we dressing appropriately? Where are we going? Do we have any hills to walk up? And just, working out what some of those logistical things and contracting around those a little bit is actually quite important. And I know that's something that need to think about, certainly during more coaching. And actually, the other thing is around, well, where am I walking? Because if it's a route that I don't necessarily know, but the client does, they'll know where to be going, but I'll be like, how can I concentrate on the conversation? So how do I make sure that I'm properly listening to them? Or if we take a route that I know, how uncomfortable are they because they don't know where they're going? Yeah, I do, but it allows me to concentrate on what they're saying, and I can just be the guide. So there's this whole different dynamic that comes along with moving the location from an indoor space to an outdoor space, because actually there's a whole different set of dynamics that are at play that you just don't ever really think about or consider.
No, and you're a keen outdoors person, just like I am. I walk everywhere, and my motto is there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing and footwear.
Yes.
If you've got the right kit, you can get pretty much do anything anywhere. Yes. I mean, when it is absolutely teeming down and there's the the other week, the towpath was completely flooded along. You could not walk along there unless you had wellies or waders or whatever. Yeah, and I don't, you know, I have walking boots. I don't have waders or anything like that to go walking, because they're not great for walking. So, but you know, broadly speaking, it's have appropriate clothing, have appropriate footwear, and you'll be fine. But not everybody has that gear, and B has that mindset, because it is a bit of a mindset shift.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're contracting with a client to do outdoor coaching, you've got to have that conversation to make sure that they are in the same space and comfortable with it.
And also on the opposite, if it's hot, you know, wear sunscreen. Are you wearing the appropriate shoes as well? You know, walking in flip-flops in the middle of a field might, you know, are you going to get bitten type thing? Or
we climbed Snowdon. My son and I climbed Snowdon just after lockdown, or a little bit after lockdown. And as we were coming down, there was a guy walking up, and he was literally trying to walk up Snowdon in flip-flops. Like, are you insane? He hadn't got to the difficult bit, which is where you have to scrabble and climb a bit. He's gonna hurt himself if you're not careful.
Yeah. So thinking about those kinds of things, and also like, do I bring a bottle of water? Do I bring a notebook? Okay, if I bring a notebook and a bottle of water, then how am I going to carry it? I know even as a coach, that's for me. It's like, oh, I've got to think about these things. You know, what do I need to take with me? You know, do I take a first aid kit, for example? Do I take a bag with me? You know, all of those things. You never know quite what's going to happen. So it's about being prepared, both as the coach and as the client as well, and just making each other aware that, you know, I might not be able to do a hill, or I might be able to, and thinking about those things.
Yeah, that's flagged an interesting point to me, and to raise a question back to you. What's the insurance situation for coaching somebody outside? Because if I invite a client into my premises, I have to be first aid trained. I have to make them aware of fire exits, and I have to have an accident book just in case they trip over and hurt themselves. All that sort of stuff, which is why I don't usually bring clients into my workspace. But what if you're outside? I mean, if I'm at a venue, technically, providing I've done a risk assessment of how I'm using the venue, then the venue is responsible for the general health and safety. But if you're walking around outside, there is, you know.
Yeah, I think, well, there's things around making sure that you've got a good risk assessment. You know, where are you walking? Do you have, you know, are you doing it? I mean, I'm not a mountain trained climber or anything those, and I'm not an outdoor, you know, and the walks that I do are generally very local, up and around the local park, and starting to go into maybe, you know, onto a common somewhere where there's a bit more mud and stuff. But yeah, again, what is it that you have to look at? So there's public liability insurance to make sure that you're covered. And just to be sure, and to properly contract around the equipment that you're going to be using for both of you, really. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of dynamic that you don't really need to think about necessarily doing it one-on-one, and particularly over Zoom. Because obviously you're in your own home environment. So it also raises another question for me, because I was recently coaching someone. So you don't have to be either face-to-face, you can do it on Zoom, being outside. But actually what I did recently was I walked outside near me, and the client was nowhere near me. So he walked and was on the phone. So we did phone coaching outside, both in our local environments, and then talked about, you know, and it was really powerful, very powerful, because actually I don't need to see what they're seeing. They are seeing what they're seeing for themselves. So actually we were side by side, but on the phone. And that was a really powerful. Really powerful. Happy to do that again, definitely.
We sort of use that metaphor in Samaritans. We talk about being side by side with somebody over the phone. So it's quite a powerful metaphor to use. And
he described it as me walking alongside him, holding his hand. He said, I feel like you're holding my hand right now, even though you're physically not next to me. And you know, that's such a beautiful thing to hear, when you're like, we've created this space, and people think it needs to be, I have to be face to face, but it doesn't have to be in order to create that space for someone to be able to share stuff. So it's pretty amazing.
That's good. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I guess a lot of the way we are and the way we like to work stems from way back in our childhood. Yeah, it's, you know, the more powerful people that do things that are not related to a real sense of purpose might be successfully financially. They might win money, but I'm not sure they ever really achieve, you know, their goals, their satisfying goals. I was listening to Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO. I don't know if you've listened to any episodes. He's one of the newer dragons on Dragon's Den, and he's got this podcast that he's got about 3 or 5 million listeners now. It's brilliant.
It's good.
Yeah. And he interviewed Daniel Priestley, who's a successful entrepreneur, and he was talking to Daniel about his background, and Daniel was saying that, you know, the people that have, he looks for something where it's sort of origin, mission, and vision. So, you know, what does what you're doing link back to something in your origin? And, you know, do you have this sort of vision of what you want to achieve, and what's your mission to get there? And that got me thinking about my own sort of journey of how, you know, linking back to when I was younger. And it sort of made sense now why I ended up gravitating towards becoming a project manager, and then doing the charity work and helping others that I do now. It all sort of goes back to the early days. And I mean, you and I were briefly touching on before we came on air, our early days of our early memories of being outside. And my early memories of being outside were the sand dune beaches down in Cornwall. We used to holiday at a campsite near Perranporth. And between holidays like that, we'd go to a local forest in Essex, North Weald. And, you know, I used to have some fantastic time running around, playing in the forest and building dens and stuff like that, all being outdoors. And, you know, hadn't really given it that much thought as to why the outdoors plays that much of an important part. How about you? What's your earliest recollections of being outdoors?
Family holidays, a little bit like you, sandy beaches, camping. My dad was a real fan of not going to a campsite that had anyone else on it. So we would go to a field with a tap. That was pretty much what we used to do. But those were some of the most, in my earliest memories, like camping in a field. Sometimes there would be cows in the field next door. There was a stream, and we'd have a bonfire. And it was just, you know, those kinds of things. And then again, when I was growing up, when I was in my early teens, we lived in the middle of a common, and, you know, our weekends were spent out on the common on our bikes, building camps in places. And that's my earliest, you know, my memories of, you know, being outdoors, living outside. And it's funny because I started walking near Whitmore Common most recently because of the dog, and I instantly felt a sense of peace and home. It was really strange. Just suddenly like, wow, I really love it here. This is really comfortable for me. And it brings me back to something I read actually about how people perceive the environment that we're going into. So what I might find as a really lovely environment that I've been, you know, I find comfortable, actually other people won't. So it's about thinking about, you know, well, what is comfortable for the person that you're working with, and understanding that their needs might be different to yours, and a wide open space could be quite confronting, or going into a forest could be quite confronting. And just experiencing that. And that was a dimension I never really kind of considered until I started doing this. Actually, how do I perceive this natural world? And what I love is that the same as what a potential client might like as well. So.
Yeah. And I guess that's where the coach client fit comes into play. You know, you've got to find, if you're looking for coaching, you've got to find a coach that you're going to be comfortable with, that shares some values, some approach that you're comfortable with. And likewise, the coach has got to find clients that they can work with, because otherwise the last thing you want is that friction, because you're not in tune with each other, because that sort of just erodes the coaching relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah. You need to have that connection. There needs to be, and there has to be a real strong connection, because otherwise you can't do the work. Or the work is not as effective as it could be if you don't. And that goes for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you pick an outdoor coach or an indoor coach, or someone that, you know, is an executive coach or a business coach. Actually, the connection is the biggest thing, because then you'll do your best work regardless of who you're working with. And that, I think that's, and I know I'm not always the right person for the people that that may come my way. And actually, I love to circulate and to get to know other coaches, because actually we're all unique. The client is unique, the coach is unique, the combination of those two individuals is unique, and therefore sometimes that mix just doesn't work. So
if you try and take on clients that are not right for you, then the outcome's going to be bad for both sides.
Exactly.
It's just not going to work that well. And I mean, it's funny, I put a post out, I think it was last week, with a couple of pictures of pies and talking about competition versus collaboration. And they say, well, I'm a coach, I've got to compete with all these other coaches. Well, no, you haven't actually got to compete. You've got your USP, which is you. And you will attract people, and you should only work with the people that are right for you, and they may not be right for somebody else. So if you collaborate, as you're saying, with other coaches, you can actually grow the coaching pie so that it's a bigger pie. You might get the same proportion of the pie, but because it's a bigger pie, your portion is worth more. Or sometimes even when you get a smaller proportion of a much bigger pie, you still get a lot more. But that only comes if you collaborate with an open mind and an open heart. And it's really, really important that if you approach it that way, then you're much more likely to be successful. You're much more likely to be perceived as a good coach as well, because, you know, the number of people that I've spoken to are grateful for having been passed on to the right person, rather than being, you know, pushed into working with the wrong person.
And I think that's important to pull out, because actually it builds that credibility, but it, you know, that trust in that person. I might not be right for that person, but the fact that I've referred them to someone who may be better doesn't mean that person won't refer me to someone else. They go, actually, if they're well, you know, try someone else, and they know they've got a whole network of people that they can then refer you to. And I have referred people on to other coaches and said, you know, try these, and you know, if they're not right, then come back and ask for more, because I've got plenty.
And you can always tell the coaches that have got the wrong attitude, because they're the ones that try and sit in listening on your open webinars and things like that, and they're the ones that are in the background messaging other people, going, "Oh, I do this as well." Blah, blah, blah. Right. Block them from attending next time. And actually, I've had messages back from people saying, "Oh, this other coach was on your call, and he was messaging me about training that he could do for me." And like, that's out of order. So they're actually doing themselves a disservice, and they're undermining themselves by doing that. But it can happen.
And adding, it's about serving yourself and serving the person that you're connecting with, and what's the right thing for them, and as long as it's right for them, then that there's nothing else that matters. It really doesn't matter. So I know that I won't be the right coach, and actually my approach won't necessarily be right. You know, I know there are some people who are very technical in terms of their coaching, and I'll use a much more kind of human-based being approach and taking stuff outside, and that won't suit lots of people. It will suit some, but it won't suit all of them.
but it will suit the people you want to work with.
Yeah.
And it'll make your working life much more enjoyable for you.
Yeah.
So which means, getting out of bed in the morning is fun.
Yeah, except when it's
not just a chore to take the dog for the walk.
No, exactly. I can have fun doing it. So yeah. So
brilliant. Well, I've really, really enjoyed our chat,
me
Catherine.
too.
It's
Thank you
been
so much.
really, really good, really good. And obviously, I'm guessing you'll pop some details under this on your business page to tell people how to get in touch with you if they want to have a chat.
And I've got an outdoor coaching program coming up, and I'm so excited about it because I really want to show how, people feel like they're stuck inside. Actually, how can you just get outside a bit more and have a really amazing conversation and see what comes from it? It's been, for me, being outside has been transformational this last 12 months, and bringing that to people that I work with is just, I love it, and I see the benefit. It's just wonderful. So yeah, I'll put some details below, and if anyone wants to get in connection with me and you, because you do.
Well, I was going to say I'll probably pop some details just in case you want to improve your LinkedIn presence or how you're using LinkedIn, or you want to find out more about the Guildford Business Hub and how our business education sessions can help you. I'll pop some details also on the page.
It's important. And we'll and we can cross post this to
absolutely,
so that we can both see and share.
Well, this will feature in my Friday post tomorrow on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much for helping me do this, and it's been such a pleasure to spend time with you as always, and I look forward to seeing you at the Surrey Expo in a couple of weeks' time.
In 2 weeks' time, less than 2 weeks' time now. Come and have a chocolate.
I'm definitely up for the chocolate. I'll be there, don't you worry. I'm coming to visit.
Brilliant. See everyone again soon, and thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye.